My parents tried to kick me out of my own house to make room for my sister. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. I'm a 31-year-old man who never expected to be writing something like this. For context, I purchased my home 3 years ago after years of saving and working my way up in my finance career. It's nothing extravagant, a modest 3-bedroom house in a nice neighborhood with good schools nearby. I've always been the responsible one in my family, the one who plans ahead and makes careful decisions. My sister Sarah, 33F, has always been the opposite. She has 3 kids, ages 4, 6, and 9, and has struggled to hold down a steady job. She's been living in a small apartment that she can barely afford, and I've been helping her out financially for years. I send her money for groceries, help with her rent when she falls short, and make sure her kids have what they need for school. It's not ideal, but they're my niece and nephews, and I care about them. My parents, James, 62M, and Mary, 59F, have always enabled Sarah's behavior. They make excuses for her, bail her out when she makes bad decisions, and generally act like her struggles are just bad luck rather than the result of her choices. I've mostly kept my opinions to myself because I don't want to cause family drama, but it's been frustrating to watch. Yesterday, I invited my parents over for dinner, something we do every couple of weeks. When they arrived, Sarah was with them, which was unusual but not alarming. The kids weren't there, which should have been my first clue something was up. We sat down for dinner, and everything seemed normal until we finished eating. That's when my dad cleared his throat and announced that they needed to discuss something important with me. The tone in the room shifted immediately. "James, we've been thinking," my mom began, her voice too bright. "Sarah's apartment is just too small for her and the kids. They need more space, a yard to play in, and a better school district." I nodded, assuming they were going to ask me to help Sarah find a better place or maybe increase my financial support. I was not prepared for what came next. "So we thought the perfect solution would be for her to move in here," my dad continued, gesturing around my house. "This place has 3 bedrooms, and you only use 1. The kids could share, and Sarah could take the 3rd room." I must have looked confused because my mom jumped in. "And before you say you don't have anywhere to go, we've already figured that out. You can move back into your old room at our house. We've kept it just how you left it." I was speechless. They weren't asking me to let Sarah move in with me, they were telling me to move out of my own house so she could have it. "This isn't about ownership," my dad said, clearly misinterpreting my shock as concern about property rights. "You'd still own the house, you'd just be living with us while Sarah and the kids use it. And of course, you'd still pay the mortgage and utilities," my mom added casually, as if that would make the arrangement more appealing. "Sarah can't afford those things right now, but she'll contribute when she can." Throughout this entire conversation, Sarah sat there nodding along, occasionally adding unhelpful comments like, "The kids would love it here," and "I promise I'll take good care of the place." When I finally found my voice, I told them absolutely not. This is my house that I worked hard for, and while I'm happy to help Sarah financially, I'm not moving out of my own home. They acted like I was being selfish. My mom teared up and asked why I couldn't make this one sacrifice for my sister who has it so much harder than me. My dad got angry and said that if I had any sense of family responsibility, I wouldn't hesitate to help. Sarah just sat there with this expectant look on her face, as if she was waiting for me to cave in. She actually said, "Come on, James. You know I need this more than you do. You'll be fine at Mom and Dad's." I stood my ground and told them it wasn't happening. The dinner ended with my mom crying, my dad barely speaking to me, and Sarah giving me the cold shoulder. They left quickly after that, and I've been sitting here trying to process what just happened. Am I wrong for refusing to give up my home to my sister? They made me feel like I'm being selfish, but this feels like an insane request. I'm willing to help my sister, but not like this. Not by giving up the home I worked so hard for while still paying for it. I'm still in shock that they even asked me this. I've always been there for my family, but this crosses a line I never thought they'd approach. Update: they already planned room arrangements. It's been 2 weeks since that ambush family meeting, and things have only gotten worse. After a few days of uncomfortable silence, I decided to reach out to my parents to try and have a more reasonable conversation. I thought maybe if we all calmed down, we could discuss actual solutions to help Sarah and the kids without me having to leave my own home. When I arrived at my parents' house, Sarah was there again. I should have expected that, but it still annoyed me. I tried to stay calm and explained that while I want to help, moving out of my house isn't a reasonable option. I suggested alternatives, helping Sarah find a more affordable place in a better area, maybe increasing my monthly financial support for a while, or even looking into housing assistance programs. That's when I discovered something that left me speechless for the second time in 2 weeks. Sarah pulled out her phone and started showing me photos of my house, my bedrooms, to be specific, with different furniture arrangements, color schemes, and decorations. "I've been planning how to set up the kids' room," she said excitedly, scrolling through pictures that clearly showed my second bedroom transformed into a space for her children. "I thought the boys could share this room, and Emily could have the smaller one. I'll take the master, of course." The photos weren't just ideas, they were detailed plans. She had created Pinterest boards, measured my rooms during previous visits, and even picked out paint colors. Some of the pictures showed my furniture pushed to the sides or missing entirely, replaced with beds and dressers I didn't recognize. "Where did you think my things would go?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. My mom answered before Sarah could. "We were thinking you could put most of it in storage. You won't need much at our house since your old bedroom already has furniture." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Not only had they planned this whole thing without consulting me, but they had already started making arrangements as if my agreement was just a formality. When I pointed this out, my dad got defensive. "We were just being proactive. Sarah needs to have a plan for the kids, and it's not like you're using all that space anyway." I asked Sarah when she had taken these pictures and measurements of my house. She admitted she'd been collecting data during family gatherings and when she would stop by with the kids. All those times I thought she was just visiting, she had been evaluating my home for her own use. The conversation quickly deteriorated from there. I made it abundantly clear that not only was I not moving out of my house, but I was also uncomfortable with how far they had taken this plan without my knowledge or consent. I told them that Sarah was no longer welcome to drop by my house if she was going to use those visits to plan her takeover. My mom accused me of being dramatic, saying they were just trying to be efficient and that I was making this harder than it needs to be. My dad said my reaction was exactly why they hadn't consulted me earlier. Sarah, meanwhile, started crying about how she just wanted what was best for her kids and how I was standing in the way of that. She said things like, "You don't know how hard it is to be a single mom, and, if you really loved your niece and nephews, you'd want them to have a better life." I left feeling manipulated and betrayed. These weren't just hopeful suggestions, they had been actively planning to move into my house, measuring and rearranging in their minds, all while assuming I would eventually give in. When I got home, I started thinking about the financial support I provide to my sister. Every month, I send her money for essentials, but now I'm wondering if she's been saving that money for new furniture and paint for my house rather than using it for her current living situation. I've decided to set clearer boundaries. I'm not moving out of my house, under any circumstances. If my family can't respect that basic boundary, I may need to reconsider how much financial support I'm willing to provide moving forward. Update, 3 months later. Taking back financial control. It's been 3 months since my last update, and I wish I could say things have improved, but they've only gotten more complicated. After discovering my family's detailed plans to move into my house without my consent, I set firm boundaries. I told them clearly that I would not be moving out, that Sarah was not moving in, and that they needed to find alternative solutions. Instead of respecting these boundaries, they escalated their pressure tactics. My parents began calling me daily, each conversation somehow circling back to how perfect my house would be for Sarah and the kids. Sarah started bringing her children over more frequently, making comments like, "Don't you love having the kids here? Imagine how great it would be if they lived here." The turning point came when I discovered that Sarah had actually given her landlord notice that she would be vacating her apartment at the end of the month. She did this without having secured any new housing, apparently assuming that I would eventually cave under the combined pressure of her impending homelessness and our parents' guilt trips. When I confronted her about this, she wasn't even apologetic. "I thought you'd have changed your mind by now," she said with a shrug. "Mom and Dad said you just needed time to get used to the idea." That was the moment I realized I needed to take more drastic action. I had been financially supporting Sarah for years, sending her approximately $1,500 each month for essentials, while also covering emergency expenses whenever they arose. This support had apparently created the impression that I was endlessly available as a financial safety net, with no boundaries or limits. I called a family meeting of my own, at my parents' house, not mine, and laid out my decision. I would be gradually reducing my financial support to Sarah over the next 3 months, starting with an immediate reduction to $1,000, then $500 the following month, and nothing thereafter. I explained that I would continue to contribute to a college fund for the kids, but that direct support to Sarah would end. The reaction was explosive. My mother burst into tears, calling me cruel and heartless. My father accused me of punishing the children for an adult disagreement. Sarah became hysterical, demanding to know how she was supposed to support her family without my help. You could get a job, I suggested, which only made things worse. I remained calm and explained my reasoning. Their attempt to pressure me out of my own home while expecting me to continue paying for it had demonstrated a fundamental lack of respect. If they couldn't respect my basic boundaries, I couldn't continue enabling the dynamic with financial support. This isn't about punishing anyone, I explained. This is about establishing healthy boundaries. I've been happy to help all these years, but that help came with an implicit understanding of mutual respect, which has clearly broken down. My dad argued that family should help family unconditionally, to which I responded, exactly, which is why you shouldn't be trying to kick me out of my own house. In the weeks since that meeting, the situation has been tense but revealing. Sarah scrambled to tell her landlord she would be staying after all, incurring a penalty fee which she immediately asked me to pay. I refused. She found a part-time job within 2 weeks, something she had claimed was impossible for years due to childcare issues. Suddenly, my parents were available to watch the kids during her shifts, another thing they had previously said they couldn't manage. My parents have been giving me the cold shoulder, but I've noticed they're also pushing Sarah to be more independent. It seems that when my financial support was guaranteed, they were happy to enable her dependency. Now that it's being withdrawn, they're finally encouraging her to stand on her own feet. I've stuck to my plan of reducing support, and while it hasn't been easy watching Sarah struggle more, I can already see positive changes. She's been more proactive about looking for work, more careful with her spending, and has even started selling items she doesn't need for extra cash. I still love my family, and this situation hasn't been easy for any of us. But I'm starting to realize that my years of unconditional financial support might have been doing more harm than good. Sometimes the most helpful thing isn't giving people what they ask for, but encouraging them to find their own solutions. Final update. 6 months later, the tables have turned. It's been 6 months since I stopped providing financial support to my sister, and the transformation in my family dynamic has been nothing short of remarkable. After the initial shock and anger wore off, reality began to set in for everyone involved. Sarah, faced with the necessity of supporting herself and her children, managed to turn her part-time job into a full-time position. She's not making a fortune, but she's bringing in steady income for perhaps the first time in her adult life. She also applied for and received some government assistance that she had previously been too proud or too comfortable with my support to pursue. My parents, who had always claimed they couldn't help much with childcare, mysteriously found the time and energy to watch the kids while Sarah worked. They also started contributing financially to Sarah's household expenses, something they had left almost entirely to me for years. For the first 3 months after I withdrew my support, communication was minimal. I would get the occasional text about the kids, but otherwise, there was a distinct chill from my family. I used this time to reflect on our relationship and to enjoy the peace of my home that I had fought so hard to maintain. Then, about a month ago, the tone began to change. It started with my mother calling to casually ask how I was doing. The conversation was strained but cordial. A week later, my father called with a similar check-in. Neither of them mentioned Sarah or my decision to stop the financial support, but I could sense they were testing the waters. Last week, I received a call from Sarah herself. Her voice lacked the entitled edge I had grown so accustomed to. She asked if we could meet for coffee, just the two of us. Curious about this development, I agreed. When we met, Sarah looked different, more put together, more serious, more adult. After some awkward small talk, she got to the point. I wanted to apologize, she said, looking me directly in the eyes. What we tried to do with your house was wrong. I know that now. I was so used to everyone solving my problems that I started to expect it, even when the solution meant taking something that wasn't mine to take. I was stunned by her candor but let her continue. These past months have been really hard, she admitted. But they've also been clarifying. I've realized how dependent I'd become on you, and how unfair that was. She explained that losing my financial support had forced her to make difficult decisions and take responsibility in ways she had avoided for years. She had created a budget, started cooking at home more, and even begun building an emergency fund, small but growing. 2 days after my meeting with Sarah, my parents invited me to dinner. I was wary but decided to go. As we sat around the table, Sarah and her kids were not present. My parents finally addressed the elephant in the room. "We owe you an apology," my father began, his voice gruff with emotion. "We should never have asked you to give up your home. It was inappropriate." Coming from my father, this was the equivalent of a lengthy, tearful confession. My mother, less restrained with her emotions, had tears in her eyes. "We were so used to you being the responsible one, the one who could handle anything, that we stopped seeing you as a person with your own life and needs. We took advantage of your generosity." They explained that the past 6 months had been eye-opening. Without my financial cushion, they had to step up to help Sarah in ways they had previously left to me. The experience had changed their perspective on the whole situation. Then came the real reason for the dinner. My parents, it turned out, were struggling financially. Years of helping Sarah when I wasn't available, combined with some poor investment decisions, had depleted their retirement savings more than they had admitted. They were considering downsizing but were worried about what that would mean for their ability to help Sarah if she needed it. "We're not asking you to start giving Sarah money again," my mother clarified quickly. "But we wanted your advice on our situation. You've always been good with finances, and we should have listened to you more." I was touched by their humility and honesty. After years of dismissing my financial advice and enabling Sarah's dependence, they were finally acknowledging that my approach might have merit. I agreed to look over their finances and help them create a sustainable plan. We spent the evening going through their accounts, investments, and expenses. It was the most open and honest financial conversation we'd ever had. As for Sarah, she hasn't asked me to resume my financial support. Instead, she's asked me to teach her how to budget and invest the little she's able to save. She's also suggested that her oldest child might want to mow my lawn or help with yard work for a small allowance, teaching him about earning money rather than expecting it. The irony isn't lost on me. The family that tried to take my house from me is now seeking my advice on how to keep their own homes and financial security. But rather than feeling vindicated or smug, I feel relieved. For the first time in my adult life, my relationship with my family feels balanced and respectful. I still help with the kids' expenses occasionally, a school field trip here, new shoes there, but it's given freely, not expected or demanded. And when I invite everyone over for dinner now, it feels like a genuine family gathering, not a strategic move in some unspoken power struggle. It took a drastic step on my part to change the dynamic, but in the end, it may have been the best thing for all of us. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone isn't to give them what they want, but to give them what they need, even when that's the space to face their own challenges and grow from them.